Oh, sixth grade. Why'd y'all wake me up, man? I'm gonna sleep for another hour. I gotta chill with that. All right. Well, I guess I'll just have to wake up. Guess we might as well just get into our lesson too. Give me just 1 second, real quick. All right, we're good to go. So if you remember, last class period we talked about Jesus' crucifixion. And I had you do a big long reading about all of what crucifixion, how it happened, all the details of it. And then I actually had you read the story of Jesus' crucifixion. And if you remember from the first reading, they used the word excruciating to describe the pain that Jesus went through. You've probably heard that before, excruciating pain. It just means terrible, terrible pain, right? But what you might not have known is that that word actually has the same root as the word crucifixion. In other words, that word excruciating was used to describe when somebody died on a cross. It was just so bad that it needed a specific term to really describe the physical pain that was happening. But what's even crazier is that the physical pain wasn't the worst part for Jesus. The emotional and the spiritual pain that he experienced was even worse than that. If you remember, right, his closest followers, his friends, had betrayed him or had denied him. They had bailed out. But then, even deeper than that, Jesus was carrying the weight of all of the sins of the world to the cross. So that's why it was so intensely painful, because Jesus was bearing all of the pain of our sin and the judgment that came with that. Now, that is a terrible, terrible thing, a horrible thing to go through. But it's good news, actually, for all of us. And so there's a very personal meaning in the crucifixion for us. And here's the good news. It's that because Jesus decided to take all of that on himself and was willing to die, that means for us that now our sadness, death, our sin, our loneliness, our worry, all of these different things, Jesus took to the cross and he put them to death. Now, that doesn't mean we don't still feel these things, right? We still do have people that we lose. We still feel anxious. We feel sad. We feel all these different emotions, right? But it does mean that Jesus helps us with these things actively. He's constantly helping us, giving us new life. And it also means that there's going to be a day where he comes back and he's going to put all of those things to death once and for all. So where there's not going to be any more death, mourning, crying, pain. All of that is going to be old. And the new thing that is happening is going to be without any of that. And so that's the good news about this really bad thing that happened. So along with this personal meaning of the crucifixion, there's also a wider community meaning. And in order to describe what I mean by that, I'm going to actually describe what it would have been like to be at one of these crucifixions. So if you remember, Jesus was alongside two criminals. They were both on a cross and he was at the center on one. But now they wouldn't have been alone. There actually would have been a whole crowd gathered around them. Almost a public gathering for entertainment to watch them be killed, which seems so messed up, right? But there was a reason for it. See, Rome, this big empire that they lived underneath, Rome was trying to tell people, all the criminals, that this could happen to them. Basically, it was like a warning shot. They're saying, if any of you disobey us, if any of you go against what we say, you could die like these three up here. And so Jesus died the death that the lowest sort of criminal would have died. Okay? But it wasn't, like I said, just this sort of personal thing. It was this wider thing that other people would watch. And now it sounds terrible, and it is. The crazy thing is, though, in the United States, we have something that is pretty similar to that. Now, you probably have heard about this in your history books, but it's called lynching. And lynching was racist white people actually hanging black people. And what's crazy is that they would do this, and they would actually have that same sort of crowd gather around to watch this. They would even sell photos and things like that to make it this entertaining thing to watch it happen. And in the same way that crucifixion was supposed to be a warning shot to say, don't step against us. Don't disobey us. That was what this was supposed to be as well. It was white people telling black people, if you go against us, if you try to rise up out of your slavery, this is what could happen to you. So it's a terrible, terrible part of our history. And here's the thing, Jesus, because he died in the way of crucifixion, he understands what it was to be hated to such a degree that you were put to death like that. And so Jesus was very close to all of these black folks who were killed in this way. And here's the other thing. I think that if we take ourselves seriously as followers of Jesus, it means that we need to respond to those sorts of deaths. Now, lynching isn't happening actively really today, but there is still all sorts of racism that happens, and still all sorts of awful things that are said, done to black folks, to brown folks, even to Asian folks too, right? And so we really need to think about what is our response as Christians to this, because I think Jesus would have a lot to say about that. And my guess is you might think the same. And so in this activity today, you're going to get to look a little bit more deeply. And I'm going to ask you some questions of reflection to think about. What does this mean, and how, as Christians, should we respond to this?